Welcome, welcome to the Mind Fuck Podcast. Welcome once again, my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out to hang out with me. I am eternally grateful that you're here. My name is Wonu Alishe, and sometimes I do go by Amazing Soul. Welcome. FCK stands for fun, compassion, and kindness. We have a tradition on the show where I read out a list of what I titled Reminders to Being Human. And the intention behind reading this list every time on the show is to remind myself and also to remind you on your journey. All right. Reminders to being human. Have fun along the journey. Show yourself compassion. Be kind to others. Being complex and being simple can hold true in the same breath. Stay curious. Hold space for pauses. Hold space for not knowing. Never underestimate the power of silence. Nature has a lot of wisdom. Pay attention. There is power in we than I. If nothing else makes sense, come back to love. Pain is our greatest teacher. And the very last one, never underestimate your ripple of existence. Welcome once again. Now let's get into the fun part of the show. All right. I want to start today's podcast with something that might feel a little destabilizing, but also relieving. A lot of what runs your life right now was learned way before you had language. I mean, way before you could explain yourself, way before you could defend yourself, way before you could even say, this doesn't feel good. You see, my friend, your nervous system was already learning. Your nervous system was learning, am I safe? Am I too much? Am I not enough? Is it safe to express myself? Is it safer to stay quiet? Is love steady or unpredictable? And none of that required words. You see, when I talk about the inner child, I'm not talking about something fluffy. No, I'm talking about the nervous system that formed in your earliest environments. I mean, the body that learned through tone, through facial expression, through silence, through tension in the room, through whether your emotions were welcomed or corrected. You see, my friend, your inner child is not just a memory, it's a pattern, it's a survival strategy, it's a reflex. And I'll tell you right now, it runs more than you think. let me let me bring this into my own life, right? I grew up as a very questioning child that questioned everything. I was the defiant child. I was very curious. And I didn't really necessarily like rules just because they were rules. And growing up in that kind of environment, physical discipline was normalized. It was cultural, it was common, and it was commonly also seen as a way of correcting a child. But here's what my nervous system learned growing up, long before I had words, that power equals control, and that expressing yourself could lead to pain, and that it is safer to comply than to challenge authority. So I learned to comply on the outside, right? But internally, there was a lot of rage. I mean, stored rage over the years. I mean, rage that sits in your chest area, in your jaw, in your stomach. And that kind of rage shows up years later in adult relationships, and you don't even know where it's coming from. That wasn't me being dramatic. No, that was a nervous system pattern formed before I had language for it. I'll tell you this, and I've said this before, your nervous system does not form in a vacuum. Your nervous system forms inside culture. Your nervous system forms inside family systems. Your nervous system forms inside environment. And it's constantly recording everything, not as stories, as sensation. And if you grew up in unpredictability, your body may default to hypervigilance. I mean, if you grew up having to earn love, your body may default to overperforming. I mean, if you grew up being told, stop crying, your body may default to emotional suppression. And you can read every self help book in the world, right? But if your nervous system still believes expression equals danger, you would constantly override yourself without even realizing it. All right. I will take you back to a time in my life in 2022. It was a time I was just transitioning out of the army medically. I was dealing with chronic lower back pain, 2 to 4 hours of sleep most nights, and constant bracing in my body. On the surface, I was an adult with awareness, right? I had read the books, I knew the language, I could talk about regulation, right? But my body was operating from an old template. My body was operating from high vigilance, high performance, pushing through stuff, and my body couldn't slow down. And I'll say this, and I've said this before, the army amplified that pattern, but the army did not create it. No, it was already there. The army matched something my nervous system already knew, which was structure, control, performance, and endure through pain. And when that structure was removed, right, when I transitioned out of the army, everything that had braced over the years started to surface. I mean, the sleepless nights, the irritability, the fear, the feeling of not knowing who I was without external achievement. That wasn't just stress. No, that was my inner child panicking without the systems it used to survive. And this right here is the part we don't talk about enough. You see, my friend, when your nervous system learned that love was conditional, you will chase approval as an adult and you will call it ambition. When your nervous system learned that silence kept you safe, you would avoid conflict and you will call it peace. When your nervous system learned that being strong earned praise, you will struggle to ask for help and you will call it independence. But underneath that, there is a younger version of you still scanning for safety. You see, I remember one night back in 2022, it was around like 3 a.m. and I hadn't slept more than a few hours. My back was throbbing. Ooh. My mind was racing, and I felt this deep frustration within myself. And the thoughts looping in my brain was, why can't I just relax? Why am I still feeling like this after everything I have learned? And then in that moment, something shifted. Instead of trying to control the experience, I placed my hand on my chest. And I simply said internally, I am simply noticing the sensation in my chest. That's it. No fixing, no affirmations, no forcing calm. I just started noticing. I noticed for like 90 seconds. And what I realized was this: the intensity wasn't coming from the present moment. No, it felt old. It felt like a younger version of me who had learned that not being in control meant danger. And that was the first time I truly understood that regulation is not about controlling your body. It's about reassuring the parts of you that learned that safety before you had words. You see, my friend, your inner child is not immature. No, it is adaptive because it kept you alive. See, if you become a people pleaser, that was intelligent. If you became hyper independent, that was intelligent. If you learned to shut down emotionally, that, my friend, was intelligent. Your nervous system did not make mistakes. No, no, no. It made adjustments, right? But the problem is this: what protected you at 7 years old may be limiting you at 34 years old. That's the challenge. And I see this a lot in a lot of high functioning adults. I mean, people who can lead teams, build businesses, handle pressure, right? But intimacy, vulnerability, rest, the body starts to resist. Because somewhere early on, their nervous system learned softness is unsafe. So the body constantly stays in motion. They constantly stay productive. They constantly stay needed. And we often confuse that as purpose, right? But underneath that, there's a younger part of you that is still bracing. You see, there was a period after leaving the army where I realized I realized that I did not know how to rest without guilt. I realized that if I wasn't producing, I felt uneasy. That wasn't adult logic. No, that was an old template, old programming, old conditioning. I mean, I realized that what I keep telling myself is love equals performance and value equals output. And when I stopped performing, my nervous system interpreted that as threat, not because it was true, no, but because it was familiar. You see, my friend, this is what I want you to gently consider. I want you to ask yourself, where does your body react faster than your mind? I want you to ask yourself, where do you over-explain yourself? Where do you overwork? Where do you overgive? Where do you shut down? Where do you get defensive? That reaction may not be about now. No, it may be about then, the old programming. And I'll say this right now. Inner child work is not about blaming parents. No, it's about understanding patterns, right? I'll tell you this from my personal life. I hold deep compassion for my parents now because they were shaped by their own nervous system, by their own cultures, by their own unprocessed fear. The nervous system is generational, and awareness allows interruption, and interruption allows choice. You see, one of the most powerful shifts in my life was learning to pause when I felt an emotional charge. I mean, when something hits my chest, instead of reacting, I stop, I notice the sensation, and I name it neutrally. I simply tell myself, I am noticing the tightness, I am noticing the heat. I mean, no story, no judgment. The golden 90 seconds. And I just notice it for 90 seconds. Not forever, 90 seconds. And here's what I have found. When you give the body space to process without criticism, the old loop doesn't escalate the same way. The younger part of you starts to feel seen instead of being shamed. And when that inner child feels seen, it doesn't have to scream. Do you see? I'm telling you, my friend, from my lived experience, your inner child is running more than you think. But that's not a problem. It's simply information. It tells you where safety was learned. It tells you where safety was interrupted. It tells you where trust was broken. And it also shows you where trust can be rebuilt. And trust, real trust, is built through consistent, small experiences of safety in the present moment. Not through forcing change, no. Not through shaming your patterns, no. But through showing your body in micro moments. Telling your body, I am here now. We are safe now. You don't have to carry this alone. That, my friend, it is powerful. You know, if I could go back to the younger versions of myself, I mean, the defiant child, the high performing soldier, the exhausted adult lying awake at 3 a.m. in the morning, I wouldn't tell her to try harder. No, I would tell her, your reactions make sense. Your body is not broken. You learned what you needed to survive. And now you get to learn something new. That's what I would tell her. So here's something to sit with, my friend. When you find yourself reacting this week, when you find yourself triggered or defensive or withdrawn, instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with me? No. Try asking this question instead. Ask yourself, what did I first learn? When did I first learn this was necessary? And I'm telling you, you might be surprised how far back the body remembers. And you might discover that the part of you running the show isn't rational. It's young. It's been waiting for you for so many years to simply notice what was already there. I'll tell you, my friend, your nervous system learned before you had words. Now you have language. Now you have awareness. Now you have the ability to respond differently, not by erasing that child. No, not by erasing that inner child, but by partnering with that inner child. That's where regulation deepens. That's where self-trust grows. And that's where, my friend, the past stops running the present quite so loudly. Thank you for sitting with this today with me. And if this resonated with you in any way, I want you to take a quiet moment later and just simply place your hand on your chest and just notice what's there and just stay. Sometimes, my friend, that's the most powerful thing you can do. As always, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening. And I'm sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Thank you.